script, of course, is a key point. And again, I have lots of trouble encouraging people to write their scripts. They seem to think it's a lot of trouble to write a script, and I guess it is. But the biggest trouble is to make your idea clear, to make your goal come out of what you're doing. So a script could be an outline, sometimes people like to read when they're presenting a general outline, not every line. However, I find that if you write every line, you can skip them when you're reading. You don't need to read everything, do you? So I'm not so sure. I like more detail is better. That's my philosophy. You can always not do the detail, but if you don't have the detail and you only have general, it definitely is harder. We can use a teleprompter in the studio we have here in the marketing lab, and I think many other studios have teleprompters too. And teleprompter is very handy because you can look right at the camera and just read. It's the fastest way to get a production that has speaking and a script done. Come in, sit down, read, and then you're done. And it can look really good that way too. The teleprompter is a really cool machine. It's a little bit bulky. It needs to sit in front of the camera. So this is the mirror here, and this is a computer screen, and it shines up there, and the words you can see straight ahead. And then the camera, of course, goes back behind the mirror. So it's kind of bulky and troublesome, but you know, that's the price you pay for having something that's nice and big and easy to read. The teleprompter does have a foot pedal, like the gas of your car or the brake, and you can actually press that pedal to stop and start the word. So it's not that bad. So one of the key points I would say is you need to make sure that you practice. Practice, practice, practice. And so one of the key points to practicing is to test. Test, test, test. Right? So I like to say test everything multiple times, because my experience is things just go wrong all the time. It's very depressing, actually. I don't think I've ever come into the studio once and there wasn't something wrong or something unexpected happened. It can be very annoying, that's for sure. So you need to arrive early. How early? I'm thinking way early. When I say early, I think students often think 10 minutes early, 20 minutes, yeah, sure, 30 minutes, that's awfully early. I'm talking about hours early. And the reason you want to come hours early is because when something goes wrong, you cannot fix it in 5 minutes. You cannot fix it in 10 minutes. It's going to take you an hour to figure out what's going on. Easily. That easily happens all of the time. So arrive way early. And then what about some kind of checking the video to make sure it's working, and checking the audio and make sure it's working? So how do you do that? You need to sit down and practice yourself. Talk, record yourself or your partner that's with you, someone who's helping you, before the talent arrives, before everybody else comes. So you make sure that is working. And when I say test, I mean you need to really test. You need to turn on the recorder, record it, run it for a couple minutes, stop it, go and listen to it and be sure. I say this from experience because it happens to me all the time. I've had many times where I record 40 minutes of talking, and then there was no sound. I thought there was sound, but there was none. Then what do I do now? And so this is best to find out before everybody arrives, and you can try to fix it. Often you need to restart the computer, turn things off and turn them back on. You can see from this picture here, this is inside of our studio in the control room. Lots of machines, lots of wires. These are, what are these things here? Let me point them out to you really fast. These are the wireless microphone receivers. This is a power strip for power, and then these are USB power lines. These are converters that convert regular SD video into HD video. And then this is a matrix switcher to switch video input and output. Wow, and look at all this. You know, it's a bit of a mess. I need to clean it up, that's for sure. You have audio wires, XLR. Here's an XLR. Remember, we studied that in another lesson. Tons of these things. So what happens when something goes wrong? Well, when something goes wrong, It's very hard to look through all of this and find what it is. Very difficult indeed. So you need what? You need time. Let's take a look at something that's not so messy. It's very, very clean. It's very elegant. It's right there. You've seen this many times in movies and TV shows. Maybe you've seen it in person in some place. It's the audio mixer, or what's called the mixer board. Well, the mixer board is, a nice machine, but does it look easy to use? It looks a little bit complicated to me, and I can tell you almost every time, even though I've used it for years, even though I've read the manual, every time something happens, I need to double think and triple think and then check the manual. Is this the way to do it correctly? It's always easy to forget, and it is complicated. Now, of course, you could say, well, I'll just leave it at whatever settings it is, but then what if the settings were wrong? You don't get any sound. How are you going to fix that? Again, check the manuals, because we do have the manuals on the computers, or you can go online and get the manual. It's always helpful to read a bit to at least understand the basic features. And here we are shooting one of our, I think this is our line video we mentioned earlier in another lesson. We have a clapper board, and that's to help the editors to know where to begin and where to end. In case you need to do something in the middle of a shoot, you can use a clapper board also to signify something needs to be paid attention to. So very easy to do that. I think you can also see they're following my blocking there. We've given them a nice little line to follow. Okay, so that's basically how to get ready. I know that you know most of that already, because we've covered it in many other lessons. However, I like to put them all together in this kind of lesson. Why? Because when you go into the lab, all those things we learned, you tend to forget them. When you go into the lab with somebody, they don't know any of those things. So this lesson is to help you focus on the keys, the key points, the things you really need to pay attention to. And I think this is the hardest part. It's always hard for me to explain. There's so many things to pay attention to, but that's what we need to do. So good luck in your shooting, good luck in your studio, and good luck with your videos. Now here, let's take a look at another camera that's in the lab, and this is a good example of how cameras are very different. This camera is quite a different shape, quite a different design than the other Sony cameras, although it's still a Sony camera, and it's not a handy cam just for consumer use. It's a semi-professional camera. It does have audio inputs just like the other camera, only it's designed quite different. So just very quickly, it has one ring here instead of two rings. So that one ring right there is going to be used for focus and zoom, and the exposure is not on the ring at all, so the f-stop. So that's a little bit unusual, just one ring, so you need to pay attention. You can see that it has a switch here that says zoom and focus, so you can change between zoom and focus for that ring. We have menu, down here a menu button, an iris button, a gain button, and a shutter speed button. So you end up with the three most important parts I already talked about being right there. Iris, gain, shutter speed. Gain, how bright, how sensitive the light input on the sensor is. Iris, how much light you're letting in, the f-stop. And then the shutter speed, which we talked about, how much light is being exposed per second on each frame for the 30 frames a second. So in this case, the camera turns on just by opening it like this. And on the screen, you can see right away, we have the three most important things very clearly. We have the f-stop, the aperture, how much light's coming in, the sensitivity, the gain, and the speed or the shutter speed, how much light is coming in there per frame. So that shows you right there your most important settings. So if you didn't know anything else, those are the settings you know. Now if we press menu, we get the menu and it looks very familiar. It looks very much like the menu from the other Sony camera. So we're going to just focus on these three settings. So if I press iris, it goes to automatic. If I press iris again, it goes to manual. And then there's a little dial here, then right here, and this dial will change that to be closed down, so it's darker, less light, or open up. So make the f-stop smaller, which gives me more light. Now if I press that iris again, it goes to automatic. So this camera is quite unusual. It doesn't have an automatic manual button, but rather the buttons themselves have kind of two uses. So I'm going to press that again and keep it on manual. Now I'm going to go to gain, and here you have the dB gain, and I can use my dial again to change that gain. So I can go down, -3, or I can go up, all the way up. This goes really far up. Obviously, that's way too much for the lab. But if you need to shoot outside in the dark or inside of a building without any lights, that might be very useful. And then we have the shutter speed. So I switch the shutter speed, and again, if I turn that down, so I'm going to go to, let me go down, 15, let me get to 30 here, 30. So 30 is letting more light in, but it would be more blurry. And then I'm going to go to 50 and 60. 60 is what we usually use in the lab. If I go up, 125, you can see less light is getting in, so it's underexposed. Okay, so we go back to 60. So this kind of camera is a bit unusual. It combines things together. So for example, it combines the zoom and the focus onto one ring, and you need to change a switch. So on this switch I'm on focus now, and then if I zoom in, I have a button at the top of the camera that will let me zoom in, so I don't need to use that ring. And then I can pull the focus out of focus like that by turning that ring. And if I turn it back, I kind of get it focused in. No, that's too far. Come back a little bit. Now, this picture is not very clear. I don't have enough lights on. I'm just testing, and I'm also shooting the video on the little LCD screen, which is not very clear. Okay, then I can zoom out. I think our picture is too dark, so I'm going to go to the iris, and then I'm going to use the dial. Open that up a little bit like that. So the ring, instead of being two rings that would be zoom and focus, it's just one, and then there's no f-stop ring at all. The f-stop is completely controlled in the menu system on the LCD screen. Now we do have some other buttons inside of here that we have on the other camera also. Picture profile, status check. So if I press the status check, I can quickly see what's up with our audio inputs, but we're not using them, so nothing. Display can change if there's anything on the display and what exactly is on the display. And we also have a white balance button. So we can change the white balance just like before. And in fact, you can see this white balance right now is set for 4500. Oops, a little bit cut off there. Let me move that screen up a little bit. You see that? 4500. 4500 because in the lab, that's the temperature we use for the white balance, 4500. So that's an interesting little camera. Let me zoom out a little bit so you get a better idea of what that camera looks like. It's a very different shape than our other camera. It's a bit smaller, easier to use. Zoom in there, zoom out. And it's quite tiny. Here's my hand next to it. You can see it gets quite small, but it's a very high quality camera and we can use it in the studio. Okay, so very quickly, let me just zoom in there one more time, give you a nice look at that, because this is a great camera to think about what is important on a camera, because it's got 3 buttons right there telling you what's important. The iris, also called the f-stop or the aperture, that's how much light comes in. The gain, the sensitivity to that light, and the shutter speed, 1, 2, 3, boom, right there. A very simple camera, a basic camera with good quality, but right there they give you the most important things. So keep those 3 in mind, and of course focus and zoom, and you'll probably do okay in the studio